Hey everyone, it's Kristan. Welcome to this special election 2020 edition of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. I just went live on my Facebook to go over where we stand in the U.S. Senate, U.S. House, some state legislative races, as well as the U.S. presidency, and what our marching orders are for moving forward. This is a developing situation, so we're getting out this special podcast episode today as we're sure things are going to continue to change. So make sure you tune in, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the message. Hey everyone, it's Kristan Hawkins with Students for Life. Coming to you live right now because I want to talk about what happened last night. I was up till 5 a.m. this morning. I got a quick 2-hour power nap and I'm back at my computer. But I want to break down for you where we stand right now in the pro-life movement for the presidential and U.S. Senate and some of the other elections we were following. Also want to answer some of the questions that you may have about the process, what's happening right now. You can go ahead and put your questions in the chat and my team will be getting those questions to me. And I will try to answer your questions to the best of my ability throughout this Facebook Live right now. So first things first, I really want to break down where we stand. Don't let the mainstream media or pollsters fool you. We are doing a lot better than you think we are, or that you may have thought we would have been doing at this point. In fact, I went into last night pretty pessimistic about how the results would be. I didn't want to ever, I always rather be pleasantly surprised than disappointed. And I was surprised over and over again last night. And I'm actually pretty hopeful right now where the pro-life movement stands when it comes to a lot of races. And so I'm going to let's go through some of them. So one thing you have to look at is the U.S. House Representatives. They were slated, and Nancy Pelosi and the other pro-abortion Democrat extremists believed that they would actually pick up seats, gain seats to add to their majority, their slim majority in the House of Representatives. That's actually wrong. Republicans are actually taking back seats. I saw one tweet not long ago saying, wait a minute, the House could actually be in play because there's so many seats right now. I think there's like 15 House seats in play that Republicans are leading in. So that's actually really exciting to see that even if the pro-abortion Democrats continue to control the House of Representatives, they're going to be, they'll have a slimmer majority, which will be much easier for pro-lifers to take over the majority in 2022, which we know will probably happen. Most politics, most cycles in politics, they are a cycle, they come back. So the other really cool thing about the U.S. House is that pro-life women won big. I believe there's 11 women so far, Republican pro-life women that won. This is the largest kind of block of pro-life women who are Republicans elected to the House. So this is really exciting. We're going to see a lot of pro-life women, female leaders coming to Washington, D.C. This January, and I'm super, super excited about that. There were some races that Students for Life Action were involved in. Many of you were making phone calls, sending text messages. We were knocking on doors for the House, for the U.S. Congress. So in Florida, there, U.S. Congressional District 4, John Rutherford, he won. We made over 10,000 phone calls, knocked on 12,500 doors, sent over 102,000 texts. So we're very, very excited about that. In Arizona, U.S. Congressional District 8, Debbie Lesko, she won. We made over 51,000 phone calls in that district, knocked on over 5,100 doors. Super excited about that. So there's a bunch of races that we are very excited about. In North Carolina, David Rouser, CD7, so U.S. Congressional District 7, he won. We knocked on over 4,300 doors in his district, made over 56,000 phone calls, sent over 76,000 text messages, personal text messages, by the way, personal text messages. That's a little different different than like a mass text message. Personal text message, you actually have to click a button every single time. Yeah, we did that over 2 million times in the past 2 days. So we're really excited about these House races. There's actually another House race in Virginia, actually where our headquarters at Students for Life America is located. It's CD7, U.S. Congressional District 7. That's too close to call. One of our team members is there. They're counting every last ballot. That would be an upset. That would actually be another gain for pro-life Republicans in the House if Nick Freitas is able to win that seat. So we're really, really looking forward to seeing the results there. So good news, very good news for the pro-life movement when it comes to the U.S. House. Did way better than we expected. Certainly way better than the pollsters were saying that pro-lifers were going to do. U.S. Senate. So there had been some pretty alarming reports going into the election that pro-lifers were going to lose the U.S. Senate. We held on. In fact, Maine Senator Olympia Collins, she just was announced as winning that, not Olympia Collins, Susan Collins, sorry, Olympia Snow is the former senator. I just merged their two names together. Susan Collins, she was just announced the winner there. She's a Republican. She's not pro-life, but when it comes to judicial appointments, she's very helpful. So it looks like the GOP Republicans will hold the U.S. Senate, which is huge. For me, going into election night, that was my biggest concern, that I didn't want Democrat pro-abortion extremists winning all three chambers, all three kind of House, Senate, and the presidency, having this trifecta, because we're very concerned about Supreme Court packing. Just this past weekend, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, said that Justice Amy Coney Barrett was an illegitimate justice. And they were already beginning to tee up the idea of packing the Supreme Court. So because they know now we have a pro-life majority on the Supreme Court, 6 pro-life justices, which, by the way, I actually think we need 7, but they're very fearful of that. So the idea was, let's just add on more Supreme Court justices like FDR did back in the day and tried to do even more. So very, very good news that the U.S. Senate will hold pro-life, because if the presidency does go to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the most extreme abortion ticket we've ever seen, we are going to need strong, courageous pro-lifers. So talking about some of these Senate races, this got a little scary. Going into election day, the polling in some of these places is atrocious. I mean, honestly, there needs to be major reform of how we're doing polling, because some people are using polling to suppress votes. So, for example, in Wisconsin, for the presidential race, the Washington Post, a very liberal pro-abortion newspaper, came out just a few days ago saying Wisconsin was going to go 17 points for Joe Biden, which right now it's neck and neck. Joe Biden may win it by a percentage point. But what happens is when you put out polls like that, you actually suppress the vote. People that would go vote for the other candidate think, oh, there's no point. I'm not going to go stand in this line for a few hours. There's no point. It's not going to work. That is very, very dangerous. And so I think these pollsters really need to be held into account. And by the way, these pollsters are always the same ones that tell us that the majority of Americans support abortion. Majority of Americans want to see Roe versus Wade to be upheld. So next time you hear that, just be like, are these the same pollsters that called the presidential election overwhelmingly for Biden and all were proven wrong on election night? Just keep that in mind. So U.S. Senate, we were very active in Montana, knocking on doors in Montana, making phone calls, sending tons of personal text messages for U.S. Senator Steve Daines. He's an incumbent. He actually is like the pro-life ringleader up there in the U.S. Senate. He started the pro-life caucus. One of our Students for Life leaders, actually, one of your fellow members of the Pro-Life Gen, Andrew Guernsey, actually runs that Pro-Life caucus. We are super excited to see that Steve Daines held onto that seat. Right now, there's Senator Tom Tillis in North Carolina has claimed victory. It's a very close race, but he's claimed victory, so he will hold onto a seat. Very pro-life. You might have seen him during the Senate Judiciary hearings for Justice Amy Coney Barrett and talking. I think he had a memorable line about roadkill. So it was interesting. I don't think I'll ever forget that line. Let's see. U.S. Senate Senator Martha McSally in Arizona sadly lost. That was kind of expected going into election night because she was appointed and she had previously lost a race to the U.S. Senate, former Senator John McCain's wife was campaigning with the Democrat. So there's a lot going on. What's bad there is the Democrat that won, Mark Kelly, is a pro-abortion extremist, totally in bed with Planned Parenthood. Pending right now, and what's really exciting is U.S. Senate in Michigan. John James, it's a pending election. He's still winning. We made over 99,000 phone calls in Michigan, knocked on over 8,100 doors, and he may win this race by fewer than 8,000 votes, which is really exciting to see that the doors that the pro-life gen knocked on outnumbered. We literally will have knocked on the same amount of doors he'll win his seat by if these numbers hold true throughout the rest of the day and tomorrow. So I'm really, really excited to see what happens there in Michigan. John James is African American. He's going to be a fresh voice for the Republican Party and pro-lifers in Washington, D.C. So I'm very, very excited for that. So a lot of good news coming there in the U.S. Senate. And I think it's really important. What we've been really trying to do at Students for Life is talk a lot about, what you all did, how many phone calls you made, how many doors you knocked, how many text messages you sent, to really show that becoming involved in politics matters. We know as pro-lifers, this is not a political fight. I say this every time we talk about politics. I always have this disclaimer, right? Because we know politics is important. Laws, elections determine what laws get passed, and laws determine whether or not children live or die, whether or not taxpayers are forced to fund abortions. It's a really big deal. But our fight intrinsically is not a political fight. This is a human rights movement. And in fact, you can be a liberal, you can be Democrat, conservative, Republican, you can be whatever label you want to give yourself politically and be part of the pro-life movement. But this is the practical reality right now, is that we have two parties in America, and one is pro-life and one is egregiously pro-abortion. And that's just the reality of where we are. Does that mean that every Republican will be pro-life? Nope. And does that mean that every Democrat will be pro-abortion? Nope. But a good majority on both sides tend to lean inside with their platform. So it's really important for us to be involved in the political process, to have a voice, to show up, and to show our senators, show our congressmen, show America that we are the pro-life generation, and that we're really going to put our money, our feet where our mouth is, that we're going to get out, we're going to knock on doors, we're going to spend our most precious asset, our time, campaigning for politicians, and sometimes politicians that we don't really like, but politicians that we know will lessen the evil of abortion. So really, really excited to see all that you did. The Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action, we've never been more engaged in getting out the pro-life vote. In fact, on social media, just this past 4 weeks, we spent well over six figures, well over six figures, getting out the pro-life vote, trying to convert 18 to 35-year-old persuadable voters in swing states and across the country. And we're seeing 40% conversion from people, young people saying pro-life, abortion isn't a main issue when they vote, to changing their mind, and at the end of our engagement saying that abortion is going to be one of the key issues when they go vote. So super, super excited about that, and really to see kind of more of the results pour in from that online engagement, as well as everything you all did, knocking on doors with our Sock the Vote activism weekends in September and October. Many of you partnered with our friends at the Susan B. Anthony list and did school deployments. Some of our Students for Life leaders even were paid by Susan B. Anthony list at part-time jobs. If you didn't have to go to class physically and go online, many students were doing that. So I know my Wilberforce fellow lives in New Jersey, and so she's been going in Philadelphia and knocking on doors. So super, super excited to see all of these numbers and to really see the difference you made. One of the things we're going to be doing is when everybody gets to Washington, D.C., is really pumping you up, showing congressmen, showing senators how you matter and how the pro-life generation matters, why they should be paying attention to the pro-life generation. All right, so another race we were paying attention to is in Montana, a gubernatorial race. Greg Gianforte, Congressman Gianforte won. That was a really important race for us because, our goal in the pro-life movement and the Students for Life is to see abortion abolished, make abortion illegal and unthinkable. Part of that is seeing Roe versus Wade be reversed. Or as Vice President Pence says, thrown onto the ash heap of history. And to do that, we are going to need pro-life legislatures, state legislatures, and pro-life governors. Because as soon as Roe v. Wade is reversed, the decision of abortion will immediately go back to the states. So we need pro-life governors. We need pro-life state legislatures. So it was really important to see Congressman Gianforte, now Governor-elect Gianforte, win there in Montana. Very important for our post-Roe blueprint and our post-Roe plan. By the way, if you haven't signed on, go to post-Roe-blueprint.com. We actually have an open letter to elected leaders, Democrat, Republican, laying out what our agenda is in the pro-life movement. We not only want to make abortion illegal, but we want to make abortion unthinkable, and we want to be supporting women and families who choose life in difficult circumstances and always be there. So I'm super excited. Super, super excited for the post-Roe blueprint. You're going to be seeing a lot more when the new Congress comes into session in January on that. And we'll be there in Washington representing you and your voice. And we're going to be asking you to come to the calls of Congress to lobby and to advocate for the preborn and their moms with us. So super excited for that. So let me see. What other races? Well, we have tons of state legislative races. So something that, kind of gets overlooked a lot in politics, and when you talk about the election, are state legislative races. Now, there's always this misnomer that's out there that, when there's a Democrat president, abortion numbers drop. And so therefore, Democrats, even though they're pro-abortion, reduce the number of abortions. That is not true, because we know right now the Democratic Party platform is saying, and they're calling for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, if they're elected, what they want to do is they want to force every American taxpayer to pay for abortion. The Hyde Amendment, for example, will be gone. They will attempt to strip out the Hyde Amendment, force every American taxpayer to pay for abortions. We know from the work of Dr. Michael New, a statistician there at Catholic University of America, he's the preeminent pro-life kind of statistician. He always measures the effect of pro-life laws, pro-abortion laws in states across the country, that when you fund abortions dramatically increase. You can check out the second episode of season 2 of my Explicitly Pro-Life podcast, where I kind of geek out for about an hour and a half with Dr. Michael New talking about pro-life state laws and their impact. But Dr. Michael New actually wrote something right before the election, kind of disputing that myth that Democrat presidents lower the abortion rate. And one of the things that he pointed out, and it was a Life News article, I think Students for Life America did an article about it. One of the things that he pointed out was that when you have a Democratic president, people kind of understand, like, I can't rely on Washington, D.C. to save lives. And what they do is they return their focus back to the states and realize, if I want to save lives, I want to protect life, I want to protect women, I want to end abortion, I have to do it in my state. I have to do it right here. And that is why we see, majority of state houses are Republican and pro-life. And so we saw, especially during President Obama's administration, his 8 years, he was in Washington, D.C., we actually saw more than 300 pro-life laws be passed across the country. And so that is why you see these dramatic drops in abortion across the country. Also, by the way, abortion numbers have been dropping steadily since 1980. So that's also there too. So don't be fooled by that statistic, but this is why state house races matter. Like I said, they tend to get overlooked. So every time we were doing door knocking, phone banking at Students for Life Action, we were actually really hyper focused on state houses, because this is part of our post-Roe strategy, that we're going to need pro-life state legislatures, because when Roe's reversed, decision goes back to the states, the state legislatures, to pass laws. This is also why judges matter, by the way. Because when states pass laws to restrict abortion, do you know how the abortion lobby always stops those laws? How they, intercede, interrupt the will of the people? Judges, judicial activism. This happens time and time again. This is why what's happening right now in the U.S. Senate has been so critical, with President Trump nominating the Senate, confirming over 200 judges in his first 4 years. That is a huge record, and it's going to have a lasting impact for decades, because what's going to happen is there's going to be fewer pro-abortion judicial activists on federal benches that are going to be willing to sweepingly override the will of the people and file injunctions and say that, a law can't go into effect. So it's really, really important. That's why the U.S. Senate really, really matters. So state house races, let's go into some of those, and then I'm going to get into the presidency. I know you all are waiting on me for that. But let's go into the state house races. All right. So in Florida, there was a state house race, District 24, Paul Renner. We knocked in over 3,500 doors. Very, very excited for his victory. We had a state Senate race, District 7 in Florida, Travis Huston won, knocked over 3,500 doors, sent more than 52,000 text messages. Same deal in Michigan, Bradley Slott. Bradley is a co-sponsor of a bill that would stop schools in Michigan from dispensing RU486, which we know is coming. That's going to be attempted in Massachusetts and New York this year to copycat the California law from 2 years ago, SB 24. So Bradley Slott, we knocked on over 4,000 doors in his district. I think it was pretty close, all the doors in the district. This summer, actually, we did this. And he was victorious, very, very excited. New Mexico, there was this is a U.S. House race. Sorry, this is wrong. There was a U.S. House race that we were able to make more than 41,000 phone calls for Yvette Harrell. It's an upset. She actually defeated a pro-abortion candidate, an incumbent. So we're very, very excited about that. Let me see here. North Carolina. We have a few state house races here. Let me push here and put there. Let's see. Donna White, District 26, State House. We knocked on over 4,300 doors, sent over 12,000 personal text messages. State House, District 82, Kristen Baker was victorious. We knocked on over 1,000 doors in our districts, made more than 6,000 phone calls. North Carolina, State House 83, District 83, Larry Pittman was victorious. So very, very excited to see all of these North Carolina winners. Very, very exciting, especially because the governor there in North Carolina, the pro-abortion governor, prevailed. But the good news is a pro-life lieutenant governor was elected. So that's going to be interesting. An African-American Republican pro-life lieutenant governor. Super excited. By the way, have you seen some of the exit polling showing the diversity that came out? The diverse individuals that came out for pro-lifers and Republicans last night. Super excited about that. Texas State House 53, State Senate 24, Andrew Murr, Don Buckingham, both were victorious. We actually have a lot pending in Arizona right now. Arizona had the tightest state house and state senate races in the country. Arizona was like the trifecta of all trifectas this year. Poor Arizonans. I feel bad for all of them. They must be getting a lot of phone calls and TV ads. I know in Pennsylvania, my kids are very well versed in Donald Trump and Joe Biden speak because of all the ads on YouTube that they've been seeing. But we're actually waiting on two races there in Arizona, State House and State Senate race that we are very, very much involved in. Same deal in Minnesota. We're waiting on some races to be called. So lots of good news coming out of there. I'm looking at our win, pending, and loss chart. We have far more wins than we have losses. I think 3 times the amount of wins than we have losses right now. And about, let's see here. about 14 pending races. So a lot coming down the pike that we're going to be seeing. We are not out of the woods yet for some of these races. So super excited. All right. Now, the U.S. presidency. So we don't know what's going to happen. I have to tell you, I was super disappointed with the way Fox News was called Arizona. People were still in lines when they called Arizona. They didn't want to call Florida and Texas for like ever. They called Virginia immediately, which was very close till the very end. So I was very disappointed. So I actually used, and this is funny to say this, I actually was relying on the New York Times. They have a great tracker, and I found that their reporting was probably the most conservative of waiting to call till things came in. So where we stand right now, I'm looking at the New York Times map just in case anything changed while I was talking to you. It doesn't look like much has. So what it comes down to is President Trump needs to win Georgia and North Carolina, which he did last time. Those are leaning very likely towards President Trump. So that's good. But he also needs to win Pennsylvania, which is leaning towards him. There's 80% of precincts in. He's winning 53% to 45% of the vote, about 500,000 votes. Very nervous about Pennsylvania because what happened is last night, all of these very Democratic states just stopped counting votes. And once it became clear that President Trump was winning, it was very, very suspicious, very, very concerning. I'm very nervous about the state of Pennsylvania, to be honest with you all. I live here now. We have one of the most extreme pro-abortion politicians in office as Governor Tom Wolf. Governor Tom Wolf isn't just pro-choice. Sometimes politicians, campaign as pro-choice, but then you're like, are you really pro-choice? I'm not sure. He is a strident believer in abortion. He is so pro-abortion. He actually volunteered and proudly talks about his time volunteering for Planned Parenthood as a death escort. Those are the people that wear vests. So when women pull into the abortion facility parking lot, they stand between the women and the folks, the pro-lifers who are praying. And if someone tries to hand her literature, like for a pregnancy center, they'll take it out of her hand. A lot of times the death escorts, they'll curse at you, scream at you, yell at you, spit at you, try to intimidate you as a pro-lifer to get you to leave. You're literally leading women into the door so that their baby can be killed. So that makes me very nervous. Also, the Attorney General here in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, he is like, I don't know what his official title is, but he's basically the head honcho of all pro-abortion attorneys general. I think you're supposed to say it when you're saying it plural. The attorneys general actually came together, the pro-abortion ones, not long ago and did like this like open letter to President Trump or whatever, and they've done all these lawsuits. He's the one who sued the nuns here in Pennsylvania to require nuns who aren't having sex because they're nuns to pay for and have abortifacient contraceptives in their health care plan, and went all the way to the Supreme Court with that. So I'm very nervous about the state of Pennsylvania and votes. It's very frustrating to see Twitter, immediately last night they were banning President Trump's posts, taking them down, hiding them. You weren't able to, share his posts or like his posts. Even this morning, when I was trying to retweet something the president said, it said, "Don't you want to read the article first?" I'm very concerned because, President Trump was literally just saying the truth today of what was happening, what the count was, and Twitter was already trying to suppress him. If President Trump and Vice President Pence win and pull this victory out, it will be despite the fact that the mainstream media, Hollywood elites, and social media, big tech firms were all in the bag for Biden and actively working to harm him and suppress the pro-life message. And it really does call, I think, for a need for a critical evaluation, as I said earlier, about misleading polling that's being produced, that's literally being used to suppress voters, and then also to go after and I think to hold these people accountable, Facebook and Twitter as public utilities here, having some responsibility to the public and using their platforms to completely suppress pro-life voters, pro-life people. And to be honest with you, I actually think this is going to get worse. We've seen it get worse year after year after year. I don't think pro-lifers and the pro-life movement, and I've said this over and over again, we should not rely on social media as our main way to reach out to people, to stay in contact with people, because at any moment, those networks, those giants can take us down. Like Students for Life has never been able to spend money on their platform on Twitter. That's a huge problem. Our Twitter never grows, ever, no matter who retweets us. So there are a lot of suspicious things happening, and I think it's going to get worse. So Pennsylvania is really the state to keep your eye on. Interestingly, Fox News called Arizona immediately. All of my friends in Arizona, Kathy Herod, leader of the conservative, Center for Arizona Policy. We partnered with her for a lot of door knocking efforts this summer, which, by the way, you want to see commitment. You should see the pro-life Jen knocking on doors in the state of Arizona in the summer heat, 110 degrees weather. I think we had, despite numerous breaks, we had heat strokes, all kinds of things that, students getting sick. It was so hard to knock on these doors. Our pro-life Gen leaders are amazing. But Arizona was interesting because it was immediately called, and the leaders there are saying, hold back, hold back. There's this Sharpie gate developing where they told a bunch of precincts that are Republican pro-life to vote in Sharpies. Now they're saying those ballots are invalidated. And so Joe Biden is winning Arizona right now by fewer than 80,000 votes. The votes that are coming in, I think, are coming 2-1 or 2 to 3. Yeah, 2-1, Trump to Biden. And so the last time I heard, there was like 500,000 votes. So the math that I'm seeing, let me see here. I will read this tweet. 500,000 outstanding votes. 65% of the votes, are going to Trump, given that Trump will win Arizona with the current number. So we'll see that. Wisconsin is going to go into a recount. So it's narrowly, Joe Biden has taken Wisconsin, less than 21,000 votes. So that will be a recount there. The Trump campaign has already called for a recount. Michigan, I think you're going to see a similar situation. Let's see, according to the New York Times, 94% of estimated votes are reported. And I think President Trump is less than 50,000 behind. So that's also going to be very close. That was the one. Michigan was interesting, where at like 3 a.m., like 150,000 votes all came in all at the same time for Joe Biden, and not one Donald Trump vote, all at the same time. So very fishy things going on there. I'm actually pretty big advocate, especially after this election, no more mail-in ballots. Unless you're sick, can't get out to the polls, or you're serving overseas, because these mail-in ballots are going to be a huge problem. And I think they're going to need to count every single one of them. And Wisconsin, the big, Twitter conversation is that there's more votes than there's registered voters. I think they allow same-day voter registration. So we'll see how that holds. There's all kinds of things happening right now. Nevada is actually holding results until tomorrow. It's actually 8,000 votes. Joe Biden is winning Nevada by 8,000 votes. So it's very, very, very close there. So I'm interested to see what happens there. That could go into a recount situation as well. So lots and lots of things we're going to see. In Pennsylvania, there was a really interesting law they passed here, where they said that because of COVID, you can request a ballot very late, and then you were able to mail it. It just had to be postmarked by yesterday. So meaning that the ballots may not be arriving until Friday. And what's really interesting about that is the state Supreme Court here in Pennsylvania said that if the county clerk can't determine if the postmark date is correct, if the postmark date was by yesterday, if it's smudged, if it doesn't have one, they have to presume that it was okay, that it was mailed in time. That's a problem. That's a big problem. It went to the U.S. Supreme Court. They pushed it back down. That's when you heard President Trump saying we're going to go to the Supreme Court. That's what most likely he's talking about. So lots of things going on there. Just keep praying. But I think we can be hopeful that President Trump and the pro-life movement is still in the game here when it comes to the presidency. Some other amazing things we're going to talk about. Louisiana. Louisiana is amazing. I think they're the #1 pro-life state. I think Arizona tries to fight with them for that title. But Louisiana passed Amendment 1 yesterday, which says that the state constitution does not allow for a right to abortion, meaning when Roe is reversed and the state of Louisiana bans abortion, judges won't be able to say, oh, it violates the state constitution. They are getting ready in Louisiana for a post-Roe America. So super excited about that. And I'm very excited. Our movement is not going to end no matter what happens with the presidential election. Our movement continues forward, guys. It might get a little bit more difficult, but our mission doesn't change. Our mission stays the same, to continue to work to make abortion illegal and to make abortion unthinkable. And we might have to focus in state houses more than Washington, D.C., but we can certainly save a whole lot of lives if we continue to work together and stay engaged in the political process. All right, so I'm going to answer some of the questions. I still have lots more. Oh my gosh, I have this really cool spreadsheet. I just would love to share it with you guys. Maybe I'll find a way to put it on a graphic at some point. But let's go through some of the questions I'm getting in here. What's up with Michigan? I don't know what's up in Michigan, Noah. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if we go into a recount situation there. It looks very, very shady. Is fraud happening from Daniel? Yes, I do believe fraud is happening. Fraud happens every time we have an election. What I think is sad, and I think no matter who wins the presidential election, you are going to see half the country believe that the election was falsely decided or stolen. And that's scary for the future of our constitutional republic, when voters won't have faith in the voting process, which is why I said earlier, I think that the mail-in ballots need to be taken away because it's allowing too much shenanigans and questions of where the ballot's being stored and who has them, whatever. This is a huge problem for us as we move forward in our nation. And fraud does happen. I think I had a whole independent study my senior year of college on voter election fraud in Chicago and West Virginia. It happens all the time. I know Project Veritas, they did some undercover tapes up in Minnesota of people harvesting ballots, which is illegal, and had people on tape. So I think it was in Representative Omar's district, I believe. So there's a lot going on. Yes, there is fraud happening. Fraud happens. And this is something that isn't just like a Democrat thing. Republicans, there's Republican fraud too, because, we talk about this all the time. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. There's still bad people out in the world and there's still sinners. So it happens all the time. And this is very scary, especially when you look at states where they don't require you to show your voter, your ID. Or they allow you to register on site, like in Wisconsin. So lots of things to take into account. That is why I really applaud the president for sticking this out and saying we need to have recounts or we need to slow this down, because I think this is very important. You do not want to concede until you know for sure that every vote, every legal vote, has been counted and the illegal votes are not being counted. All right. Will we know truth? We'll see. I think this could go to the Supreme Court very well, especially with the decision here in Pennsylvania, that crazy thing of if a ballot doesn't have a post. So like if a ballot just showed up today in my county clerk's house, they would have to assume I had mailed it yesterday, even though if I just like slipped it into the stack and had no postmark. Like, how can that be right? That's absolutely crazy. Let's see, what will happen if Biden wins? Okay, so Natalie, there's so many things that happen with a presidential administration that you should be concerned about because personnel is policy. So Department of Health and Human Services, the FDA, the NIH. So you want to talk about using aborted children in research. If we have a President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, taxpayers will be funding that. That's one of the things that the Trump administration has been able to walk back from President Obama. It wasn't as fast as we liked it, but they were able to do it. Funding of abortion overseas. There's a lot of things that happen in Washington beyond with the presidency, beyond just appointing judges, federal judges or Supreme Court judges or signing bills into law. The actual bureaucracy of the government, does the DOJ go after pro-life groups? That's actually something that I'm very concerned about. Kamala Harris, when she was Attorney General there in California, went after David Daleiden, the founder of Center for Medical Progress, for uncovering Planned Parenthood's baby body, their human harvesting, organ harvesting campaign. And she was running for U.S. Senate and getting money from Planned Parenthood, and her office was working with Planned Parenthood to go after David and press charges against him. They will go after, and I firmly believe a Biden-Harris administration will go after the pro-life movement. We saw this in the Obama administration a little bit. They had these reports, like watchdog reports that would come out from the DOJ of white nationalists, and they listed pro-life groups as white nationalists. It's crazy. So you're definitely going to see an attack on just our ability as a pro-life movement to organize. IRS investigations. They'll use whatever they can to make our lives difficult. So I think we're definitely going to see that happen. So there's a lot that's going to go on. We'll keep you up to date at Students for Life Action and Students for Life America for sure. But don't lose hope. Someone mentioned here, I'm so scared if Biden wins. Don't be scared. We got this. We know who has the victory in the end. And guess what? We know who has truth. We know who has the truth. And we know why they're so scared. And we know why there's this viciousness out there against pro-lifers, why we're seeing this huge increase in cyberbullying cases, for example, why we're seeing more, free speech suppression cases in high schools and colleges leading up to this election. I expect it's going to get worse after the election. So I don't lose hope, because they know they're on the losing side of history. So don't lose hope. It's fine. We got this, guys. What we're going to do, if there's a Biden-Harris administration, we're going to do what we were already doing. We're going to continue to start Students for Life groups, train you all up, train every person we know how to talk about abortion, have one-on-one conversations about abortion. We're going to wait for a challenge to Roe to get up to the Supreme Court, and we're going to work state by state to elect pro-life governors, pro-life state legislatures, and pass pro-life laws in our state houses, which will then be upheld by President Trump's confirmed judicial nominees and appointees. We're going to pass pro-life laws. We're going to get busy. In fact, I actually think our spring legislative session, we're going to have you all, I was asking so many of you to knock on doors, make phone calls, send text messages. It ain't over, guys. It's not going to be over on election. It wasn't over on election day, because guess what? We're going to be doing that before legislation in the spring. And there might be some snow. So just, get prepared. So don't be afraid. We got this, guys. We have this. We know who has the victory. We know truth is on our side. And we know the reason they're so vicious, they're so vile, the reason they attack us, because they know they're on the losing side of history. So we got this. Take a deep breath. Stay involved. If you haven't signed up yet, go to postrowblueprint.com. Add your name to our letter, this open letter to both Democrat and Republican leaders on Capitol Hill. I love, love, love our post-row blueprint, because it's forward-looking. Not only is it talking about banning abortion, but it's also saying what we need to do to prepare for America when abortion is no longer legal, when abortion is no longer an option. How do we change our schools? How do we change our workplaces? What do we need to do to make sure every woman knows that she never has to choose again between her life and the life of her child? And so it's proactive. It's actually a progressive blueprint for America. I think one of my friends, Teresa, she's a board member of Democrats for Life, when she was reading this, she goes, "Oh, I dare say this is very progressive of you." So I'm very excited for our post-row blueprint. We're going to be unveiling this on Capitol Hill, but we want you all to sign on, be with us, and then we're going to be calling you to join us in Washington, D.C., to join us at your state house, to lobby, to get involved. You've got to stay involved. Thanks, guys.